Okay, chapter two really starts off like thinking like a scientist. And here he talks about theory and observation, which is like how scientists, they make a hypothesis and then they test the hypothesis. Now, the trouble with doing this in economics is like, if we want to test, does printing more money cause inflation? You can't go to the government and say, print an excess amount of money. So what economists tend to do is they study the past where maybe government printed too much money and inflation happened. So it's kind of like a quasi experiment. It's not really the experimental method. It's more like judging on past history. All right. And then he talks about economic models. And economic models really are graphs. And graphs are really, really important in economics. So I really encourage you, whenever you're reading chapters, to put the graphs in your note, to handwrite the graphs, so you practice using that. And the graphs make assumptions. Like when we're going to do a little later the production possibilities curve, we're going to do two products. Now, obviously, there's more than two products in an economy, but we're just showing you like the basics, So therefore, using the two products makes it a little simple. If you remember, even comparative advantage, which that would be only two countries, and obviously there is more than two countries in there. And I think comparative advantage actually is the next chapter. So the first model is the circular flow. Okay, and let me first, the market for goods and services. Think like that is anything. You go to any store, you go to the mall, you go to Amazon, it's where you produce goods and services. And at that supply, firms supply the goods and services and households demand. Okay. And if you look at the inner red circle, that's how the product flows through the economy. And if you look at the green outer circle, that's how the money flows. So, right. So I go to the store, I get like a jacket. So the goods and services go to the household, and then I pay for the jacket. And that's how the money flows to the firms. Now the market for factors of production, that's land, labor, capital, right? Entrepreneurship is the fourth one, land, labor, capital, entrepreneurship. Now household supply, like we supply the labor, right? We supply all these factors of production, and firms demand. So on that side, and here it's really hard to think of the factors of production. But like if you think of if you're going for a job, like you would go for an interview, and the firms would either hire you or not. Okay. And then, of course, the firms pay wages if they're renting out something like, from you, and they earn profit. And, what I would call is income, and that would be what the school pays me. I don't think you'll ever be asked to graph this, but a lot of times, like they would black out the market, they put nothing into the markets of factors of production and ask you what's missing. And the same thing with firms and households. So firms and households are always opposite, market and for goods and services, and factors of production are always opposite. Now there's a big piece missing that could be put in the middle, and that would be government. And we usually put government in when we're discussing macro. Let's see, could we change? All right. Here is our production possibilities curve. All right. And again, it's beef and mountain bike, or beer and mountain bikes. It's any two products. We're assuming, of course, that there are two products when there are more. Anything on the curve, like A, B, whatever's on the curve, that all means it's productively efficient. What does that mean? We're using our resources in the best possible manner. Okay. Is one spot better than the other? No. Okay. They're all productively efficient. Now, if the circle is bowed out like this, it means there's a constant increase in cost. That means as you want to make more and more beer, the cost of making that is going to be increasing as far as how many mountain bikes you give up. And obviously it's going to go the other way. Why is that happening? Because beer and mountain bikes use resources that are not easily adaptable. So when I start changing my resources to beer, it's not easily adaptable. So I'm going to need more of the mountain bikes as I make more and more beer. All right. Now, if this was a straight line, then it would be a constant opportunity cost. And the reason for that would be it would be easily adaptable. Now, I want to put in, I put in D here. Anything inside the circle is inefficient. Unemployment. Not, say I have 25 seats in my class and I'm using 18. That's inefficient use of resources. Now, one thing I want to make clear is unemployment is not using your resources efficiently. All right. It doesn't mean you have less workers, is the workers you have, you're not using efficiently. And some of them are unemployed and not working. E is unattainable with present day resources. All right. So something's going to have to happen to that curve. Now, there's kind of like two main shifters. And the first one is change in quantity or quality of resources. So that would be like more people coming into the United States or more people joining the workforce. That could be it. Or the quality of resources could be like getting college education or more education. So you're more productive as a citizen. So either one of those would shift the curve out. And I'll show you an example of that in the next slide. The second one is a change in technology. All right. So change in quantity or quality of resources and change in technology. All right. And then the third kind of thing is a change in capital stock. And what do I mean by capital stock? That would be anytime you're building more factories or more equipment and stuff like that would also shift the curve. The only reason I say I don't always put capital stock because that's really a change in quantity, right? Quantity of machines or change in quality of resources. All right. Now, any shift shows economic growth. So if there's an increase in population, therefore we now have more workers, change in quantity of resources, it shifts out. And you notice this is a boat curve, so it's increasing opportunity cost. Computers and pizzas, resources are not easily adaptable, and it shifts out. Anytime you have a shift out, you have what we would call economic growth. And when they're talking economic growth, they're talking long-run economic growth. This is what happens in the long run. Okay. All right. I'm going to just first, before I go to positive and normative, talk about micro versus macro. Micro is what we're doing now, what we're doing first. It's households, firms, okay? Industries. It is the snapshot. Macro is the aggregate. So when we talk about demand, it's the demand for everything, okay, in the economy. So it's the aggregate. So there you're also looking at how the country, inflation for the country, you're looking at unemployment for the country. So the macro is the bigger, broader. And then you get to positive versus normative statement. Positive statement is facts, okay? So prices rise when the government increases the quantity of money. That is a fact. That is not a normative statement. The government should print less money. That is a normative statement because, you could argue, is inflation good or bad? Some inflation is good. A tax cut is needed to stimulate the economy. would be a normative statement, because normative statements are more values and judgment. Okay. So those are those three. So if I'm looking at positive, I'm looking at facts. If I'm looking at normative, I'm looking at judgment. Again, a positive statement could be unemployment is 7%. The normative is unemployment is high due to President Biden's economic policies. Okay, that should do chapter 2. And thank you for paying attention.